If you love tulips as much as I do, and why wouldn't you? Just look at them. They come in so many gorgeous shapes and colours, these blousy double ones, elegant lily flowered ones. And I'm going to show you what I've got growing in my garden this year, plus a really good tip if you've just got a small space but want to grow a few for cutting. Plus I'm going to show you how you can print with them and how they were the inspiration for this book, which consists of lino prints of tulips and lots more. So keep watching. So this is an easy way to grow tulips for cutting, and you don't even need a garden. I'll link another video where I go into more detail, but basically all you need is some sort of a container, and these are beuatiful crates that you can buy online. They're used in catering a lot and supermarkets use them, and they're really strong, and you can line them with newspaper or matting or that wool insulation. Put your compost in. Put your tulip bulbs really close together because you're going to be quite generous with them, and when you pick them, as you can see that I'm doing now, you're going to take the whole thing out, stem and bulb. This means that you can get a lot in and you don't have to worry about leaving foliage to die down. This might seem a bit reckless, but the reason that you do it is that a lot of the more showy tulips, especially the double ones like I'm picking here, this is La Belle Epoque, they're the ones I showed you in the vase at the beginning. You only get a really good flower from them in the first year. They often revert to single ones or the colours change, which can be pretty. I've got several older tulips. I do the ones in the rest of my garden I keep year after year and hope that they'll come up again. But just for cutting and to get the best blooms possible, you pick the whole thing. It also means that you get the longest stem possible because you can cut them off right down near the bulb. You don't have to worry about goodness going back into the foliage. And what I've even found is some of them, if they're a bit short, and I think I'll show you that in a minute, the stem actually goes right inside the bulb, so you can cut through the bulb and get sort of like a couple centimetres more length if that's important for your bouquet. To the accusation that this is quite a sort of extravagant way of doing, well, they're still going to be an awful lot cheaper than buying tulips in a shop where you don't know what chemicals they've been treated with or where they've come from, the air miles. And I think almost the best thing of all, you get to choose exactly the variety you want, not just the ones because they transport well, and those are the ones that are available at your florist. So if you've never done this before, I'd really recommend it. The only thing is that I had to be very careful because all my tulip bulbs last year got stolen by squirrels or rats, I'm not quite sure. So I did take a few measures. I dunked all my bulbs into chili powder, and when I put them in the beds, I buried them really deeply, and then I put a thick layer of mulch on top. And I think on these crates I had some of that wool insulation, so I put them right over the top to form a physical barrier so that the vermin couldn't get them, and even put a few prunings like roses so that it was prickly and that would deter them, and that seems to have done the trick. As you can see, I've got so many this year. So as well as making gorgeous arrangements with your beautiful tulips, what else can you do with them? Well, I thought I'd have an experiment and see whether you could dry with them. With kind of mixed results. I found that the less fleshy ones worked pretty well, but the sort of fuller double ones, not surprisingly, had a lot of moisture in them and didn't dry so well. So this is just putting them into a regular flower press and leaving them for a couple of weeks. This year I'm going to experiment with my microwave flower press that you might have seen in the last video. So when I got these out, you can see that fleshy one just really hasn't worked. It's gone mushy and a bit mouldy. But the lily flowered ones, although they're very delicate, actually have pressed quite well. So I think that was quite useful exercise to do, and it meant that I had several dried tulips to print with and also to do a couple of other techniques with. Here's a jelly print that I managed to do with the tulips, And then I did another one on a drawing I'd already done of the tulip, so I was quite pleased with that. And then the actual flowers themselves, I used my foiling method, and I'll link a video here where you can see that. So I've used the actual tulips themselves onto a panel, and I've put foil over the top and then painted them afterwards. You can also use photographs in your work. So this Ronaldo tulip, one of my favourites, I took a photograph, I printed it onto tissue paper, and I made it into a collage. And I liked it so much that I had it printed by a company directly onto some fabric. I had two different examples, and I decided to make one of them into quite a large fabric collage. So it's kind of just sort of using imagination about, well, I've got a photograph, what can I do with this? And there are just so many different creative ways that you can do this. And this had lots of different processes. You can get lots of different fabrics to be printed on, and in this case I used a very fine chiffon so that you could see the other layers underneath, and this was the finished result. And then the other one I just kept as a hanging to have during my exhibition. Last year I did a course at the Bodleian Library in Oxford, where they've got a whole printing press area. It's really amazing, lots of old printing presses. And we were making a book using traditional letterpress and also lino cutting. And we had to choose a subject for our book, and mine was all about my favourite tulips. And I'm not going to go into too much detail with the lino cutting because I'm quite new to it. My one bit of advice is to get proper tools. Those ones that come in a sort of red handle and you just put interchangeable blades are really useless. You have to invest a bit of money and get the proper wooden ones, and they work so much better and it's much more pleasing. And although I was printing them on a proper press when I was on the course, I thought, because I've got this little printing press, well, it's actually a die cutter that I use as a printing press, I decided to have a sort of trial run and just see how they worked. And then this was the book that I produced. I did a bit of research about how tulips were first cultivated, which was in Turkey and around there. And they used to give them these wonderful names, very descriptive and emotional. And one of my favourites was The One That Burns the Heart. So that's why I called my book Heart Burners. And I chose it was very difficult to choose my favourites because in a way they're all my favourite, but I chose ones that I've grown quite a lot and also that I thought would work well because they're very stylised versions. So I'll put on screen what all the tulips are so that you know, and I'll also, if I've got them in my garden, I'll show you photographs or video, or I'll look in my archive to see what I've got. And I managed to make 4 books because we did duplicates of each page, and I learnt how to do a proper case binding, and I'm going to show you how I did that in a later video. And for one of the covers I actually used a cyanotype using those same dried tulips that you saw earlier on, and made a cyanotype cover for one of the books. So thank you so much for watching. As you can see, I do find it hard, although I called this my favourite ones. They're changing all the time, but this one, Belle Epoque, is definitely up there. So I hope you enjoyed it, and please, I'd love to know what your favourite tulips are, so please put that in the comments. And this is part of my videos that are going all up this year, a series about the garden in an artist's year, so you can sort of follow the seasons. So I'd love you to join in as well, and I'll stick a playlist where you can see some of the other videos. And see you again soon.